Hey guys, I'm sorry I haven't been active for a while, but I will say this. I want you to stop what you're doing and subscribe. I want you to stick around, and if you enjoy the video, just leave me a couple comments, saying hey, whatever, if you want to hear it. Um, but today I am actually going to respond to a video I saw on Facebook. And I'm so sorry that I haven't uploaded. I really am. The past 2 weeks have been crazy. But I want to do a couple times a week different stories. And if I have to record beforehand from now on, I'll just do that. But the lady on Facebook said she didn't know if she was the only one that had experienced this thing, that there was this huge creature in her yard, yada yada yada. And um I was just gonna kinda open up a story, and then in the next video I'll share mine, because I do my filming on TikTok a lot of the time, and we get 10 minutes as the max sometimes. I guess, I don't know, I'm new to this shit. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to cuss. um anyway, but I didn't know if you guys knew anything about the Alabama white thing. Apparently it could be like a Yeti, it could be, Sasquatch, whatever, Bigfoot. It could be a lot of different things. The Native Americans, they believed it was a spirit. They didn't really believe that it was a Bigfoot, you know. But in my personal experience, my grandmother actually had seen it. Um, and I did share a video about it, I believe. But I was going to touch on it more because that's kind of where this comes off. When I was young, I loved everything scary. My very first scary movie was Resident Evil when I was like 7 or 8. Um, it really scared me, but it made me have a love for zombie movies. Like, I love everything zombie, The Walking Dead. It got crazy after Glenn died, so I kind of quit watching that. I think everybody did. I mean, it became less about survival and more about, kingdoms and stuff. And that's where they lost me. Um, Fear the Walking Dead, I've always really liked, because it doesn't really do that a lot. You got fighting, but it's not like that. Anyway, um, so I've always loved spooky. I've always loved scary stories. And when I was little, I would ask my mom, Mama, have you ever seen a ghost? Have you ever seen this? Have you ever seen that? And she would tell me yes or no, or whatever the case was for that certain question, if you will. Um, but I was still bugging her, and I asked her, and we lived in a place called Lacey's Spring, Alabama. It is in Morgan County. It's right next to Huntsville. It's a little bit south, I believe. There's a river that separates the two. But this one in particular, there's a place down off of Lower Dry Creek Road, I believe it is, and it's called the Lane, or it's called Chicken Foot, because literally, it looks like a chicken's foot. It does this, and then it has the one road leading in. Sorry, one road leading in, and then you can go three ways, one, two, or three. The middle one just goes all the way back to the river. To the right goes through the woods, and it goes up a little ways, and all of them meet at the river. So, I have been down there, and I'll share that story later. But I had been down there, and I would go down there pretty often as I got older. I've taken my kids down there, whatever. Well, apparently, my grandmother lived on the property right around Chickenfoot, or the Lane. And I've told you before, my mom, she had 13 brothers and sisters. My grandmother had three, husbands that had passed away. All of them, they were gone. So my grandmother had to work. The oldest ones would take care of the babies. It was a mess. And guys, I just saw a shadow go across my refrigerator, and there's nothing there. Anyway, um my my grandmother was the last people in Morgan County to get power. That really scared me. I'm sorry. They were the last ones to get power. They were the last ones to get water. Well, my grandmother worked in Huntsville, so she would have to drive all the way from there to, Huntsville. Well, my Aunt Wanda would babysit my mom and my aunt, the aunt that I was closest to, my Aunt Pat. And when they were babies, they didn't know, anything about anything spooky, but they had a garden, of course, like everybody did in those days. It was just your typical country house, no power, out in the middle of nowhere. This is before in Lacey. If you Google it on a map, Lacey Spring, Alabama, and Google Lower Dry Creek Road, and you'll see the river, you'll see the layout, and maybe I'll, in another video, break it down better. Either way, I'm at 5 minutes already. So my grandmother would work, and one night, my uncle was, he was at home. My grandma was at work, and my aunt hears something out in the garden. Something's tearing the garden apart. And, they would use old pie pans, like the aluminum, to scare off crows or scare off whatever. That was just what they did. Something had tore it all up. Well, my aunt, she had to, she had kids, so she couldn't, there was no phone. This was back in the 60s, so, and they didn't have a phone. So, what had happened is they heard something tearing up the garden. They didn't know what it was. They figured it was deer or something like that. My aunt gets my mom and my aunt ready to go, and they had this car that halfway ran. And they get in the car, they go next, like, not next door, but down the road to my uncle's house to tell him, hey, this is what's going on. Something's out in the garden. And he says, okay, I'll be there in a minute. Well, as they're coming back, they keep seeing what they think is something in the yard. It's white. They can't tell what it is. The headlights on this car were the 60s. Come on now. They pull up and they see something and they hear something like growling. And so my aunt immediately grabs my mom and them out of the car, gets them inside. And as soon as they do, something is banging on the window, busts the window, like, I don't know what it did, threw something, hit it, I don't know. It was trying to get in the house, yada, yada, yada. My uncle finally shows up, and it stops. Nobody knows where this thing goes. And, he comes in, and my mom and my aunt and my other aunt are just crying on the couch, like, huddled up in a little ball, crying. And, my uncle's like, what's going on? And, they tell him, and he goes outside, and he doesn't see anything. There's nothing there. So, he used to drink a lot. And he decides he's going to lay down because it seems to have calmed down. He's going to stay the night now until my grandma gets home, because she wouldn't get home till, like, late. And she'd have to get up early to go back and cook. So my grandma, she pulls in. She carried a .38 revolver with her. That was her thing, because she did not want to be messed with. And, she didn't have a husband. She didn't have any protection, so she was going to protect herself. She pulls in on the side of the house, and she sees this thing in the garden. So immediately she's thinking like an albino deer or something like that. She says, get out of here, and starts like going towards this, trying to scare him out of the garden, because they relied on that garden to eat. And, she's like, well, I guess her reasoning was, I'm going to shoot more around into the ground, and I'm going to scare whatever this is off. And, she did, and this happened a couple times, the same stories, but this is a separate story that I don't think I've told. But yeah, she fired around. The thing wasn't scared at it. It started coming at her, and she shot 2 to 3 more times, and this thing did not stop. And when she realized that, she took off in the house, and whatever it was, it had shredded the screen door, it shredded everything. After that, it was like continuous. There was another story I heard a lot of different times, to where almost the exact same thing happened several times, and there's nothing they could do about it. They didn't have a phone, like, what do you do? They had no money to leave, they were stuck. But that was one of her little stories about the white thing. And the next video I do is going to be on how I first encountered it. And I did encounter it a couple times when I was on the lane, but this is at my current property. Like, current. Like, this isn't when I was a kid. This is now. So, I'll be right back. Bye. I don't do that. I'll be right back, guys.